In a faraway galaxy, ruled by the mighty Zarkan Empire, there lived an alien princess named Lyra, the only daughter of the alien king, Radek the Unyielding. Their people were known for strength, power, and battle. But Lyra was different. She was fragile, quiet, and gentle, everything her father despised. The other alien warriors whispered behind her back. They called her the useless daughter of the king. Even her own guards looked at her with pity. Her father tried to train her. He placed her in battle schools, gave her advanced combat droids to practice with, but Lyra always failed. Her body was not strong enough, and her spirit was weak. King Radek's disappointment grew. He loved his daughter, but his kingdom was at war with humans, the species he hated most. And yet, one day, he made a decision that shocked the entire empire. He decided to give his daughter to a human. No one could believe it. The council begged him not to. "My king," they said, "humans are primitive, emotional, and weak. They will destroy her." But the king only said, "If she cannot become strong among her own people, then perhaps she will learn strength among our enemies." That night, a massive ship left the alien capital, carrying the trembling princess inside. Through the glass window of her chamber, she looked back at her home world, the shining towers fading behind her. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know who this human was. But she knew one thing: this was not a gift. This was exile. The ship entered the human solar system. After days in hyperspace, it reached a small blue planet, Earth. Waiting there was a human man named Commander Ethan Cole, a decorated war veteran known for his bravery and cold heart. When the alien soldiers delivered Lyra to him, Ethan stared at her. She looked weak, frightened, and lost. "This is the king's daughter?" he asked. "Yes," replied the alien envoy. "He said you may do with her as you wish. Teach her your human ways, or destroy her. The king no longer cares." And then the ship left, leaving the alien princess standing alone on Earth, surrounded by human soldiers. Ethan turned to her. "You're far from home, princess," he said in a low voice. "If you want to survive here, you'll have to earn it." Lyra's heart pounded. She had never felt such fear before. But deep inside that fear, something else began to stir. For the first time in her life, Lyra wanted to fight back. That night, in the cold metal barracks of the human base, Lyra couldn't sleep. She looked at the stars outside the window and thought about her father's words. Maybe he was right. Maybe she needed to find her strength far from home. When the morning came, she found Ethan already waiting for her in the training field. "Today," he said, "you learn to be human." Lyra frowned. "But, humans are not strong." Ethan smirked. "No. We're not born strong. We become strong. That's what makes us dangerous." He handed her a training staff. It was heavier than anything she had ever held. Her arms trembled. Her legs shook. She dropped it after the first swing. Ethan didn't yell. He just said one thing, again. And again. And again. For hours, under the harsh sun, the alien princess trained with the human soldier. Every failure burned in her muscles. Every drop of sweat reminded her she was no longer in her father's palace. She was in the human world now, where pain was the teacher, and weakness was death. As the day ended, Lyra fell to her knees, exhausted. Ethan stood beside her, his voice calm. "You have potential," he said. "But you need to decide what you want. Do you want to stay the king's weak daughter, or become your own kind of warrior?" Lyra lifted her head slowly. Her silver eyes glowed faintly under the fading sun. "I don't want to be weak anymore," she whispered. And Ethan nodded. "Then we begin tomorrow. And we don't stop until the galaxy knows your name." The next morning came too soon. The air outside was sharp and cold, and the training field was silent except for the sound of metal gates opening. Lyra stepped out, her eyes half open, her body aching from yesterday's endless drills. Commander Ethan Cole stood waiting for her again, arms crossed, watching as the alien princess approached. He said nothing at first, only studied her as if he was reading her mind. "You're late," he finally said. Lyra frowned. "You never said the time." "In my world," Ethan replied, "a warrior doesn't wait to be told when to wake up." Lyra lowered her eyes, ashamed. She had been royalty all her life. People waited for her commands, dressed her, guarded her. But here, she was no one. "Pick up the staff," Ethan ordered. She did. Her arms still trembled from yesterday, but she held it tighter this time. Ethan circled her slowly, like a predator studying his prey. "Lesson 1, he said, humans are not born strong. We learn to survive. Pain is our language. Fear is our teacher. You'll hate every moment of it, but when it's over, you'll never be the same." He pressed a button on his wristband, and 3 combat drones flew into the air, spinning around Lyra. Each one glowed red, scanning her body. Lyra took a step back. "They're armed." "Of course," Ethan said. "Now fight." "What?" I can't." Before she could finish, a drone shot a stun bolt straight at her shoulder. She screamed and fell to her knees. Ethan's voice echoed coldly across the field. "You can't what? Survive?" Lyra looked up, her teeth clenched, her arm burning with pain. "Stop this." "Then make me stop it," Ethan shouted. "Show me you have something worth saving." Something inside Lyra broke. The years of humiliation, of being called weak, of her father's cold eyes watching her fail, it all came crashing down. She stood, lifted the heavy staff, and swung it wildly. The first strike missed. The second hit a drone's wing and sent sparks flying. She didn't stop. Each movement was clumsy, desperate, but filled with fire. Ethan watched closely. "That's it. Don't think. Feel. Let the pain drive you." After several minutes, the last drone hit the ground smoking. Lyra was gasping for air, her arms shaking uncontrollably. She looked at Ethan, expecting praise. But he only said, "Again tomorrow." Her mouth fell open. "Tomorrow? You mean, again?" "Yes," he said calmly. "Every day until you stop bleeding." That night, Lyra sat in her small metal room, staring at her reflection in the mirror. Her face was dirty, bruised, and her arms were covered in burns from the drones. For the first time, she didn't cry. Instead, she whispered to herself, "Humans, become strong." And she smiled faintly. Days passed. Then weeks. Each morning she woke before dawn. Each night she collapsed after training. Ethan never showed mercy. He pushed her beyond her limits, physically, mentally, emotionally. He taught her to fight hand to hand, to run until her lungs screamed, to think like a soldier, not a princess. She failed hundreds of times, but every failure made her harder. Ethan began to notice the change. Her movements grew sharper. Her voice grew steadier. She no longer flinched when hit. One morning, after another brutal round of sparring, Ethan said, "You're improving." Lyra wiped the sweat from her face. "Not enough." He raised an eyebrow. "You sound like me." She looked him straight in the eyes. "Maybe that's a good thing." For a brief second, Ethan almost smiled. But far away, in the cold halls of the Zarkan Empire, the alien king sat upon his throne, watching the human planet through a holographic screen. A spy satellite showed his daughter training with humans, fighting, bleeding, surviving. His generals stood beside him in silence. "She's learning," said one of them. King Radek's eyes narrowed. "She's forgetting what she is." "My king," the general said carefully, "she could become useful to us one day. A bridge between humans and our kind." Radic slammed his fist on the armrest. She is my shame. I sent her to die, not to rise. He turned to the shadows behind his throne. Send the Wraiths. If she continues to train with humans, kill her. Back on Earth, Lyra stood on top of a high cliff overlooking the military base. The wind blew through her silver hair as she stared at the human soldiers training below. Ethan walked up beside her. You've come far, he said. But the real test is coming. She turned to him. Another drone fight? He shook his head. No. Real enemies. Aliens. Your own kind. Lyra froze. My father sent them. Maybe, Ethan said. Or maybe they're just afraid of what you're becoming. Lyra clenched her fists. Let them come. I'm not afraid anymore. Ethan looked at her with pride. Then you're ready. That night, alarms blared across the human base. Red lights flashed. Explosions echoed in the distance. Ethan ran to the command deck. We've got incoming ships, cloaked, alien signatures confirmed. Lyra stood beside him, her armor shining under the emergency lights. She took a deep breath. The fear that once ruled her heart was gone. In its place was something new, the fire of a warrior. Then let them come, she said. Let my father see what his weak daughter has become. The night sky over the human base was burning red. Explosions flashed like dying stars above the clouds, and the ground shook with thunder. The alarms screamed across the compound. Commander Ethan Cole stood in the control room, his eyes fixed on the radar screen. Multiple ships, inbound, his officer reported. Cloaked tech, definitely alien. Ethan clenched his jaw. Zarkan. Beside him, Lyra stepped forward, her silver hair glowing faintly in the crimson lights. They're not just soldiers, she said quietly. They're Wraiths. Ethan turned to her. What are Wraiths? Lyra's face hardened. My father's assassins. They erase problems, silently. For a moment, no one spoke. Then Ethan barked out an order. Lock down the base. All defensive units on standby. The soldiers ran to their positions. Automated turrets came online, scanning the skies. But even with human technology, the Wraiths were already too close. Through the smoke and darkness, 6 black ships descended, sleek, silent, shaped like knives cutting through the air. They didn't use lights. They didn't make sound. They just appeared, like ghosts. Lyra followed Ethan outside into the storm. The ground trembled beneath their boots. She could feel something, an energy she hadn't felt in months. The energy of home. Stay behind me, Ethan ordered, loading his pulse rifle. Lyra shook her head. No. They came for me. I'll face them. Ethan glared at her. You're not ready. But her eyes didn't waver. Then this is how I'll find out. Before Ethan could argue, the first Wraith appeared. A blur of black armor and glowing blue eyes landed in front of them, silent as shadow. Then another. And another. 6 in total. The air grew cold. The leader stepped forward, holding a curved energy blade that shimmered in the night. Princess Lyra of Zarkan, he said, his voice metallic. By order of your father, you are to return, or be erased. Lyra's heart pounded. For years, she had dreamed of her father's approval. Now he wanted her dead. I will not go back, she said firmly. Not as the weak girl you once knew. The Wraith tilted his head. Then you die as something else. He moved faster than lightning. Ethan barely saw the strike before his rifle was sliced in half. He rolled aside, firing his sidearm, but the Wraiths dodged every shot. Lyra grabbed her combat staff, her grip steady. She had trained for months for this moment. She wasn't a princess anymore, she was a fighter. When the first wraith lunged, she blocked his strike and spun around, hitting his chest with the staff. Sparks flew. Ethan shouted, "Keep moving." Lyra ducked under another blade, kicked off the wall, and slammed her weapon into a wraith's neck. The shockwave sent him crashing into the dirt. But there were too many. 3 of them surrounded her, blades flashing like fire. She blocked one, dodged another, but the third hit her side, leaving a deep burn. She screamed but didn't fall. Ethan ran to cover her, shooting at the attackers. "Fall back to the hangar." Lyra gasped, "No. If I run, they'll never stop." Then she saw it, one of the wraiths raising his weapon, ready to strike Ethan from behind. Without thinking, she dove between them, using her body to block the attack. The energy blade grazed her arm, leaving a glowing scar. Ethan turned, stunned. "You saved me. Fight now." "Talk later," she snapped. Inside the base, alarms wailed louder. Human soldiers were trying to hold the line, but the wraiths cut through them like shadows in smoke. Lyra and Ethan fought side by side. He fired precise bursts while she struck fast and close. They moved as one, covering each other without speaking. But then the wraith leader caught her staff mid-swing. His strength was monstrous. He pushed her back, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "You've learned much from these humans," he hissed, "but you are still one of us." Lyra's breathing was heavy. "Not anymore." She twisted her weapon, channeling the pulse core Ethan had installed inside it. The staff exploded with energy, sending a burst of light that blasted the wraith backward. He crashed into a wall, his armor smoking. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Ethan stepped beside her, gripping a plasma grenade. "Finish it." Lyra nodded. She swung her staff one final time, hitting the ground and triggering the grenade's energy field. The explosion lit up the sky, tearing through the wraith squad. When the smoke cleared, the battlefield was silent. Only Lyra and Ethan stood among the ruins. Ethan lowered his weapon slowly. "You just took down 6 of your father's best killers." Lyra's chest rose and fell with every breath. "I didn't do it alone." He gave a small smile. "No. But you didn't need me to save you either." She looked at her burned arm, then at the wrecked ships around them. "He won't stop," she said quietly. "If the king sent wraiths once, he'll send an army next." Ethan nodded. "Then we prepare. Together." Lyra turned her gaze to the stars. Somewhere out there, her father was watching. And for the first time, she didn't feel fear, she felt defiance. "Let him come," she whispered. "I'm ready for war." But far away, in the dark throne room of Zarkin Prime, the alien king watched the transmission feed in silence. The image showed his daughter standing beside a human, surrounded by the wreckage of his assassins. A slow, dangerous smile crossed his face. "So, my daughter has teeth now," he murmured. "Good. Let her grow stronger. When she's ready, I'll crush her myself." The chamber filled with shadows as he rose from his throne. "Prepare the fleet. Earth will burn." The world had changed. Just days after the Wraith attack, every government on Earth went into alert mode. Satellites picked up massive movements in deep space, something enormous, something alive. The stars themselves seemed to shiver. Commander Ethan Cole stood at the edge of the Human Command Center, watching the holographic map of the solar system. A red wave of alien ships was moving toward Earth. "The Zarkin Armada," he muttered. "Thousands of warships." Beside him, Lyra stood in full armor, sleek, dark silver, reforged by human engineers using alien alloy. Her once fragile hands now carried a pulse spear that glowed with power. She looked at the map in silence. "My father's coming." Ethan glanced at her. "Then he's coming for both of us." Lyra nodded. "And he won't stop until this planet is ash." The base became a hive of movement. Soldiers ran through corridors, technicians wired up defense grids, and engineers loaded missile silos. Above the base, Earth's orbital fleet, hundreds of human ships, prepared to stand against the alien storm. Ethan turned to his officers. "We've got one advantage, they think we're weak. Let's prove them wrong." The room filled with determination. Humanity had never fought an empire this vast before, but now they had something different, an alien warrior who once called the enemy her family. Later that night, Lyra stood alone in the training yard. The wind blew against her armor, carrying the faint scent of rain and smoke. She looked up at the stars, the same stars that once watched her grow up in her father's palace. "Do you think I'm a traitor?" she asked quietly. Ethan walked out of the shadows behind her. "I think you made a choice. That's something your kind doesn't do often." Lyra smiled faintly. "When I was little, my father told me humans were animals. Now I see, maybe you are. But animals fight harder than kings." Ethan chuckled. "We fight because we have no other choice." She turned to him, her voice soft but strong. "Then I'll fight with you." Hours later, the first tremor hit Earth's orbit. The Zarkan fleet arrived, massive ships shaped like burning wings, covering the stars in shadows. The ground forces watched in awe and horror as the sky turned red with alien fire. "Contact in atmosphere," shouted the radar officer. "They're entering attack formation." Ethan grabbed the intercom. "All units, battle stations. This is not a drill." Across the globe, cities powered down to hide from targeting systems. Anti-orbital cannons came online, glowing with blue energy. Fighter jets screamed through the clouds like shooting stars. Lyra watched as the first wave of alien dropships entered the sky. They burned through the atmosphere like meteors. "They're landing in multiple zones," Ethan said. "They're trying to divide us." Lyra's voice was calm. "That's how my father fights, divide, overwhelm, erase." "Not today," Ethan said. "Today, we make history." The first explosion hit near the Pacific base. The ground cracked, and shockwaves knocked soldiers to their knees. Alien mechs, towering machines of black metal, emerged from the smoke, their cannons glowing with green plasma. Ethan led his team out, firing pulse rifles and grenades. The night sky turned to fire. Lyra leaped into the chaos, her spear humming with power. She spun, cutting through alien armor like glass. Every move was precise, every strike filled with fury. One of the mechs turned toward her, raising a massive plasma cannon. She ran straight at it. The cannon fired, a blinding beam of light, but she jumped high, flipping over the blast, and drove her spear into the mech's chest. It exploded in a flash of blue fire. Ethan shielded his eyes, shouting, "Remind me never to argue with you again." Lyra landed beside him, smoke rising from her armor. "Then don't start." But as the battle raged, a new signal appeared on the radar. The main Zarkan flagship, the Obsidian throne, entered Earth's orbit. It was larger than a city, wrapped in rings of fire and shadow. Ethan stared at the display. "That's your father's ship, isn't it?" Lyra's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes. He's here." A transmission suddenly came through. The air in the command room shimmered, and the towering hologram of King Radek appeared. His red eyes glowed with cruel amusement. "Daughter," he said slowly, "you've made quite the mess." Lyra stood tall. "This is not your empire anymore." Radek smirked. "You think siding with humans makes you strong? They are insects, and you are my blood. You cannot escape what you are." Ethan stepped beside her. "She already has." The king's expression turned dark. "Then you'll die with her." The transmission cut off. Moments later, the Obsidian throne opened its main weapon port, a black hole cannon large enough to swallow a city. Lyra's eyes widened. He's going to destroy the planet. Ethan slammed his fist down. Not if we stop him first. Inside the chaos, Lyra made a decision that would change everything. She turned to Ethan. There's a way to stop the cannon, from the inside. I know the ship structure. I grew up there. Ethan's eyes narrowed. That's suicide. Maybe, she said. But it's the only way. Before he could stop her, Lyra sprinted toward a human fighter dock. She jumped into a small craft and activated the thrusters. Lyra! Ethan shouted through the radio. Her voice came through the static. You taught me to fight, Ethan. Now it's time I finish what we started. The ship roared into the sky, leaving a trail of light behind her as it shot toward the massive alien fleet. Ethan watched her disappear into the clouds, his heart heavy but proud. Good luck, warrior, he whispered. Far above Earth, the alien king watched as a single human fighter approached his flagship at impossible speed. He leaned forward on his throne, curious. Who dares, he growled. Then the scanner identified the pilot. His expression froze. Lyra. The weak daughter he had abandoned was now flying alone into the heart of his empire, ready to face the king himself. The stars stretched into ribbons of light as Lyra's fighter shot through space toward the monstrous shadow of the Obsidian throne. It hung above Earth like a black god, massive, silent, consuming the light of the sun. Its surface shimmered with strange energy, alive and watching. Lyra's hands were steady on the controls, her breathing calm. She could feel the hum of the ship beneath her fingertips, could hear Ethan's last words echoing in her mind, good luck, warrior. Her heart ached, but she couldn't let fear win. Not now. Not when everything, the humans, the planet, even her own soul, depended on what she did next. She switched to stealth mode and approached the flagship's underbelly, where she knew the defenses were weakest. She remembered this ship. She had walked these halls as a child. She had laughed here. Cried here. Now she was coming back as its enemy. The fighter latched onto the hull with a magnetic clamp. Lyra grabbed her spear, her pulse pistol, and took one deep breath before blasting open the small service hatch. Cold, metallic air hit her face. The inside of the ship smelled the same, clean, sharp, and deadly. She climbed inside, silent as a shadow. The corridors glowed faintly with crimson light, and the ship's heartbeat pulsed through the metal walls. Every step she took echoed with memories. Her father's voice. Her failures. The weight of being the king's disappointment. But this time, there was something else inside her too. Something new. Fire. Lyra moved fast. She disabled the first two guard drones with quick, precise strikes. She knew the patrol patterns, the code sequences, the ventilation shafts. Every corner of this ship was burned into her mind. Her goal was deep within the core, where the Eclipse cannon was charging, the weapon that could erase Earth in one shot. She tapped her wrist display, opening a secure channel. Ethan, do you copy? Static crackled, then his voice broke through. Lyra, where are you? Inside. Heading for the cannon core. Power levels are rising too fast, you have maybe 1 hour before it fires. Copy that. Be careful. If your father's there. He is, she whispered. And I'm ready. As she moved deeper, she reached the grand hall of the throne deck, tall, endless, lined with glowing alien runes. It was the heart of the empire, the place she had once stood beside her father during ceremonies. Now it was quiet, except for the soft hum of energy running beneath her feet. Then, from the shadows, a voice echoed. You've come home. Lyra turned, her weapon raised. King Radic stepped forward from the darkness. He wore his royal armor, black as space, edged with red light. His presence filled the room like a storm. I knew you would return, he said. Every child eventually seeks their father's forgiveness. Lyra tightened her grip on her spear. I didn't come for forgiveness. Radek smiled faintly. Then what did you come for, my daughter? To beg? To kill me? Or to see what real power looks like before you die? She raised her weapon. I came to stop you. The king laughed, deep and cruel. Stop me? You've been living among animals, learning their weak tricks. You think pain makes you powerful? It makes you soft. Lyra's voice shook with rage. No, father. It made me human. And humans don't bow. For the first time, the king's smile faded. He moved faster than her eyes could follow. His blade ignited, glowing with black fire. Their weapons clashed in a burst of light that shook the walls. Lyra fought with everything Ethan had taught her: speed, precision, instinct. She dodged, rolled, struck. But Radek's power was overwhelming. Each swing of his blade sent shockwaves through the chamber. He hit her across the chest, sending her flying into a column. Sparks exploded around her as she fell to her knees. You see, he roared. You were never meant to fight. You were meant to kneel. Lyra looked up, coughing, her armor cracked. Maybe. But I learned something on Earth. She stood, trembling but defiant. Humans get back up. Radek lunged again, but this time, Lyra moved with perfect timing. She slid under his blade, swung her spear, and struck his leg, driving energy through his armor. The blast threw him backward. He crashed into his throne, cracking the obsidian seat. For a moment, the great king looked, stunned. Lyra stood tall, breathing hard. You made me weak, father. But they made me strong. Radek growled, you've become something unnatural. No, she said. I've become free. She turned and sprinted toward the cannon core. Radek shouted after her, if you destroy that weapon, you destroy everything, including yourself. She didn't stop. The chamber opened before her, a massive glowing sphere pulsing with raw energy. The Eclipse cannon was fully charged. Her wrist display beeped. Ethan's voice came through. Lyra, the weapon's charging sequence is complete. If it fires, Earth is gone. I know, she said softly. But if I overload it from inside, the energy will collapse the entire core. It'll stop the cannon. Ethan's voice broke. You won't survive that. She smiled faintly. Humans taught me something else too, Ethan. Sometimes you fight, even when you know you'll lose. She plunged her spear into the energy conduit. Sparks exploded, blinding white. Alarms screamed. The power core roared like a beast. The entire ship shook as the overload began. Radek staggered into the chamber, shouting, Stop. You'll destroy us all. Lyra looked at him through the blinding light. Goodbye, father. The light consumed everything that in orbit. The obsidian throne erupted in a colossal explosion. The shockwave rolled across space, scattering debris like stars. From Earth's surface, people watched the night sky burst into a brilliant blue halo. Then it faded, leaving silence. Ethan stared at the screen in disbelief. She did it, he whispered. She saved us. He bowed his head, grief and pride mixing in his chest. You were more human than any of us. But deep within the wreckage of the obsidian throne, among drifting metal and flickering lights, something moved. A faint blue glow. A heartbeat. Lyra's eyes opened, the silence of space was absolute. No radio signals. No heartbeat monitors. No sound but the faint hum of broken machinery drifting through the dark void. And then, a single pulse of blue light flickered beneath the wreckage of the obsidian throne. The debris field was massive, spinning slabs of black alloy, molten fragments of the once mighty flagship now orbiting Earth's upper atmosphere like a shattered crown. The explosion had gutted the alien empire's greatest ship, but not all inside had perished. A jagged piece of hull plating shifted, revealing the glow of an energy cocoon. Inside, motion stirred. A hand, small, armored, and crackling with strange blue fire, broke through. Lyra gasped as cold air rushed into her lungs. She fell to her knees, coughing, her vision a blur of light and darkness. Her armor was in ruins, her skin burned, but she was alive. Alive, when she shouldn't have been. She looked down at her hands. The veins beneath her skin pulsed with blue light, rhythmic, alien, powerful. Her blood didn't look like blood anymore. It shimmered, like starlight in motion. What happened to me?" she whispered. The ship's shattered AI core flickered weakly beside her, its voice fractured. "Lyra, system integrity compromised, energy fusion detected between alien and human DNA, you are no longer baseline." Her breath caught. The explosion. The overload. The fusion reactor had torn through her body, rewriting her cells, merging the alien technology with the human resilience Ethan had awakened within her. She was neither one nor the other now. She was something new. Outside, the darkness stirred, small reconnaissance ships, remnants of her father's fleet, scanned the debris field. Their sensors pinged faintly as they detected movement. "She's alive," hissed one of the alien pilots through the comms. "The traitor breathes." "Orders?" another asked. The reply came cold and sharp. "Capture her. The new emperor wants her brought back, dead or broken." Their engines ignited, streaks of red light cutting through the void. Lyra felt the vibration before she saw them. Her instincts sharpened instantly, the human and alien halves of her mind merging into one flawless reaction. She grabbed the fractured edge of her spear, its shaft flickering with residual energy, and looked toward the approaching lights. Her heart pounded with something primal. Not fear. Not rage. Purpose. The first fighter fired. Plasma bolts screamed across the black sky. Lyra sprinted along the broken hull, her movements impossibly fast, leaping across the floating wreckage with inhuman grace. Each impact of her feet left trails of glowing light, as though space itself bent around her. She thrust her spear forward. The weapon pulsed, absorbing the ambient energy, then unleashed a shockwave that shattered the nearest fighter into molten fragments. Two more came in fast, their cannons locking onto her. Lyra extended her hand. Blue arcs of lightning coiled from her fingertips, wrapping around the ships and tearing their cores apart. They exploded silently, blossoms of fire in the void. The last pilot saw her standing amid the flames, glowing, fierce, eyes burning with alien fire, and screamed into his comms. "She's not mortal anymore." Then his ship was torn apart by her gaze alone, crushed by the invisible force that rippled from her mind. When the silence returned, Lyra floated among the remains of her father's empire, breathing hard, her body trembling with the energy coursing through it. She looked down at her reflection in a fragment of black glass. Half her face was human. The other half shimmered with crystalline patterns of light. Her hair flowed with streaks of silver and blue. She looked terrifying. She looked divine. And somewhere, deep inside her, a voice whispered, "Power comes with a price." She recognized that voice. It was her father's. But not the living one, the echo of his mind, stored within the ship's neural network, now fused into her own. "Get out of my head," she hissed. Radek's phantom voice chuckled. "You carry my blood, child. You can't destroy what made you." Lyra clenched her fists. "Watch me." She reached into the core fragment beside her, channeling her new power. The AI's interface shimmered alive. "AI," she commanded, her tone sharper now, full of authority. "Bring systems online. Link me to the human command grid." The fractured core hesitated. "Linking, unauthorized fusion detected, connection unstable." "Do it." Electric arcs surged around her as the signal pulsed outward, reaching toward the distant orbiting human stations. Down on Earth, Ethan was aboard the Valiant Dawn, orbiting just beyond the debris field. When his console began to glow with static, he thought it was interference. But then he heard her voice, broken, distorted, but hers. "Ethan, it's me." He froze. "Lyra? You're alive." "Alive," she said. "But not the same." Her signal came through the screen, her face half hidden in flickering light. She looked both human and alien, something out of myth, something meant to rewrite history itself. Ethan could barely breathe. "What happened to you?" Lyra looked past him, toward Earth's curve below. "I've become the bridge," she said. "Between two worlds that only knew how to destroy each other." The ship sensors began to beep wildly. "Ethan," she said, her voice turning grim. "There's more. The Empire isn't gone. My father's generals are uniting the remaining fleets. They're coming. For me, and for Earth." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we stand together again." Lyra smiled faintly, the glow in her eyes softening. "No. This time, I lead the war." She turned, her gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The light around her grew brighter, wrapping her in radiant energy. "AI," she said, her voice echoing through the wreckage, "begin reconstruction sequence. Rebuild the throne, not as a weapon, but as a shield." The ruins trembled, metal twisting, reshaping under her command. The dead ship began to live again, reborn in blue light, no longer the Obsidian throne, but something new. The Dawn Spire. Lyra floated above its core, her silhouette framed by the newborn light of a rising star. Her father's empire had burned. But she would rise from its ashes. Not as a princess. Not as a weapon. But as the warrior reborn. Space burned with the glow of war. Dozens of alien dreadnoughts tore through the stars like metal dragons, their crimson engines leaving scars across the void. At the center of the oncoming armada was the Imperial Wraith flagship, commanded by General Varric, once loyal to King Radek, now sworn to destroy his daughter and take Earth for himself. Signal from the enemy fleet, the human communications officer reported aboard the Valiant Dawn. "They're demanding our surrender." Ethan stood on the bridge, fists clenched. He didn't even glance at the screen. Ignore it. Instead, he looked out toward the horizon, where the wreckage of the Obsidian throne had transformed into a living fortress of blue light. The Dawn Spire. It hung above Earth like a guardian star, its structure pulsating with hybrid energy, half alien, half human. And at its heart stood Lyra. Her armor gleamed silver and blue, her eyes alive with the light of two species intertwined. Her very presence pulsed through the ship like a heartbeat. "Lyra," Ethan's voice came through the comms. "They're almost here." She smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the stars. "Let them come." The alien fleet spread into formation, massive and merciless. Planetary bombardment cannons began to glow red. General Varric stood in his command pit, his reptilian eyes cold. "The king's daughter defies us with human help," he hissed. "Show her what loyalty means to the throne." He raised his claw. Fire. Dozens of beams cut across the void, converging on the Dawn Spire. But before they struck, Lyra's voice rang through the comms, calm, commanding, and clear. "Activate the Aegis shield." The spire erupted with light. A dome of blue energy expanded outward, swallowing the blasts and scattering them like sparks across the night. On Earth, millions looked up from the darkened cities and saw the heavens shimmer with alien fire and human brilliance. For a moment, it looked like dawn. "Status?" Ethan demanded. "Shields holding," replied a human tech officer. "But not for long. That kind of firepower. They'll break through eventually," Ethan said. "We'll need to counterstrike before they regroup." Lyra's hologram appeared beside him, tall, fierce, and radiant. We don't need to destroy them all, she said. Just the command ship. The Wraith flagship, Ethan nodded. Varric. Lyra's eyes hardened. He was my father's general. His strength comes from fear. Let's show him what strength built on hope looks like. Moments later, the Dawn Spire surged forward. Its new engines roared, leaving trails of sapphire light as it cut through the enemy ranks. Human and alien ships followed behind, a formation unlike any seen before, humans in steel-gray fighters, aliens in sleek obsidian craft, flying side by side under Lyra's signal. Targeting systems online, said the Spire's AI. Lock onto the flagship's core, Lyra ordered. Inside her chest, the hybrid energy pulsed, her connection to the ship alive and growing. She was no longer just commanding it. She was it. The battle exploded into chaos. Dogfights ignited across the stars. Human fighters spiraled between alien cruisers, firing missiles that ripped open their hulls. Alien ships shielded human bombers as they dove through the flames. For the first time, the galaxy's oldest enemies fought together. Lyra felt their courage surge through her. Every pilot, every soldier, human or alien, was bound to her through the Spire's neural network. She could feel their fear, their bravery, their will to fight. Then, a voice broke through the connection. Lyra! Ethan shouted. They're opening a wormhole behind the flagship. They're bringing reinforcements from the outer colonies. Lyra's breath caught. If that portal opened fully, Earth would burn. Then we close it, she said. How? Ethan demanded. Lyra's gaze sharpened. From the inside. She launched from the Spire's main deck, wrapped in energy wings that blazed like comet fire. The void around her rippled as she accelerated straight toward the portal. Alien cannons fired, but the bolts disintegrated before touching her. She was pure motion, pure fury, her body now one with the energy that once almost killed her. She smashed through the outer shields of the flagship, tore through corridors filled with soldiers who barely had time to scream. Every blast of her power bent metal, melted armor, shattered weapons. Finally, she reached the central chamber, the Wraith throne. Varric stood waiting, his eyes glowing with hatred. So, he sneered. The king's mistake returns. Lyra's spear formed in her hand, its blade humming. The king's mistake, she said, learned how to fight. They collided. Varric struck first, his energy claws tearing through the air. Lyra dodged, spinning midair and slamming her spear into his armor. Sparks flew. He roared, countering with a blast that sent her crashing into the wall. The ship trembled from their blows, alarms screaming as power levels spiked. You can't stop destiny. Varric snarled. The Empire. Lyra's eyes flared. The Empire died the day it feared compassion. She thrust her spear forward, driving it through his chest. Light exploded, consuming him in blue fire. The entire chamber shuddered as the wormhole behind them began to collapse. Energy waves surged outward, threatening to consume everything. Ethan's voice crackled through her calm, Lyra. You have to get out of there. She looked toward the growing storm of light, then at the control node that stabilized the portal. If I leave, she said softly, it stays open. Don't you dare. She smiled. Tell them, humans made me strong. Then she plunged her spear into the node. The explosion was silent, blinding, eternal. Hours later, the skies cleared. The alien armada drifted powerless. The wormhole had sealed. The war was over. Ethan stood on the observation deck of the Valiant Dawn, his face pale, eyes fixed on the wreckage. She did it, he whispered. Then, suddenly, light bloomed in the darkness. A single figure floated above the remnants of the flagship, surrounded by soft blue glow. Lyra. Alive. Changed again, less armor, more light. Her energy pulsed gently, like a living star. She opened her eyes, and her voice echoed through every ship, every mind. The war is over. The worlds are free. And as she descended slowly toward Earth, the soldiers, human and alien alike, looked up, united by one thought. They had witnessed the rise of something greater than war. The rise of Lyra, the warrior of two worlds.